Greetings, this is Sean, and today I have a special project that I'm making for Aira over at Bentley House Minis. She is working on her Beetlejuice house, and I highly suggest going and taking a look at it if you're a fan of Beetlejuice, and even if you're not, it's a pretty interesting project. But she has opened up her to her subscribers, to her viewers, the ability for us to go ahead and make some things for her project. The table of the miniature house, the model village that's up in the attic. She's asked people if they want to, they can make a one of the houses or one of the buildings that's on that she'll put into it once she gets to that part of the project. So today I am going to be making the church, and this is the church here that I made. And this video is going to show how I made this little church. And she said that it needs to fit on your fingernail. So there you can see it's on my fingernail. It's actually a little bit longer, but it's the same width as my fingernail there. So anyway, I'm going to show how I make this this little church today. So stick around for that. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Take care and have a better day, as I always say. So this is the little church here from the scene that I'm going to try and recreate. Although I'm not going to be doing the cupola part, that upper cupola part with all the arches and stuff like that. But I am going to do the smaller part of it. So that's the one I'm going to try and create. And here are the pieces that I'm going to be using in the sizes that I'm going to be using for those. There are a couple of oopsies already here. Those 1/4 inch pieces that's what they're supposed to be, but that's not what they are at the moment. So you'll see later on I actually get that fixed and whatnot. But anyway, so all I'm going to do here first is start gluing all these little pieces together. And it's been a while since I've used this glue, and my cap is actually stuck and had to pry it off with a pair of pliers. But anyway, so I'm just going to use a little bit of glue here on my mat. I find that a lot easier, just put it right on the mat since it wipes up so easily. And these are all cut from 1/32 inch thick pieces of basswood. Or it might be Baltic birch plywood. No, it's not plywood. This is basswood. And I'm just using a little dental pick to apply the glue. Let me get these pieces out of the way. And yes, I will be speeding through a lot of this. A good majority of this will be sped up. So anyway, and I apologize for going off camera several times. I had this zoomed in and I wasn't really paying attention, and I should have zoomed it out a little bit later. Later on, I actually zoom out further and makes it easier to see. So trying a different camera angle this time. But anyway, so here I'm using my Lego square to make sure that it is square, which I really didn't need to do that because I end up fiddling with it anyway and have to redo it all. But anyway, I'm just trying to get everything all straightened up and as square as possible. Here I'm gluing the front and back pieces, and you can see there that those side pieces are a little bit too long, and it actually took me a few minutes to realize that they were not right. And I'll try and point out when I actually realized that they're wrong. I was like right here. I was like, what happened? Anyway, you can see there how they go off, go past where they need to be. But I'm about to fix that up. Yeah, I read the dimensions on my CAD drawing incorrectly, which is why they were off. So anyway, I'm about to fix that problem right now. So what I'm going to do is I will take my razor blade knife and I'm just going to trim it down to size. Yeah, I shouldn't be cutting toward my finger, but I was confident I wasn't going to cut it, but I decided to make it a little bit safer and pare it off instead, like paring an apple or a potato or anything else that you would pare, cucumber, I suppose, this time of year. So anyway, that solved that problem. And yeah, that first one was a little bit crooked, but it's going to be hidden by the roof later on, so I wasn't overly concerned about how crooked it actually was. And here I'm just taking a file to kind of file it down. I didn't want to use sandpaper because it was too difficult to use in such a small spot. This here is a 1/16 inch square piece of dowel that I cut for support, to help support the ends, and also to give me something to glue the roof to, which I'm using this piece of copper here. And I cut it a little bit too short, but yeah, it's alright, I suppose. I could have made that a little bit wider. And anyway, I'm just making sure that it's wide enough, which, like I say, I could have made it wider. And here what I'm doing is I'm just marking to the peak on one end of it. That way I know where to bend it for the roof peak. And I'm just using the edge of my steel ruler there to kind of square it up a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my calipers and measure that the height of that bent up piece, so I know how big to cut the other side of it, the other side of the roof. So I'm just going to make a mark there with my dental pick and another mark on the other side. Then I'll just take a pair of scissors and cut across those two score lines there. Now I'm just going to take this piece of wood here just to help square up the edge a little bit, or the angle a little bit. And then of course I'm going to fit it onto the roof just to make sure it fits properly, which it does for the most part. Now here what I'm going to do is I've got my cast iron skillet and a couple of magnets, which I need to move the magnets around to the ends instead of to the sides. And I'm going to take my my butane torch that I have, that you've seen me use on several other projects, and I'm basically going to heat up this copper until it starts to turn black. So rather than trying to paint it or patina it, which I kind of am patinaing it, but it's a heat treatment, and it's just going to turn it all a nice, grayish charcoal black color. And because if you look in the picture, which I'll show you here in a little bit, another picture of it, you can kind of see that it is a dark brownish gray color. And so this is how I decided I was going to use it. That way I didn't have to worry about paint or anything like that. But the problem is it made it very, very soft when I did that. It's almost annealed to the point, an annealing process. So the way you harden that back up so it doesn't bend so easily is you strike it with a hammer. So I'm just going to take my little mallet here and kind of hit it a few times to straighten it back out. And in the process of doing that, it hardens it back up so it's not so easily bent. And of course, making sure it fits still, which it does. Now I'm just smoothing out the edges a little bit because it didn't sit quite right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the church, the walls, and I'm going to be using this, it's a snow white, apple barrel snow white. And it's been a while since I've used this, so it was kind of clogged up a little bit, and that's a lot more than I really needed. I probably could have used about a quarter of that amount, but I got this it's the finest tipped paintbrush that I've got, but does what I needed to do, so I'm happy. So I'm just going to speed through this real quick, and I'm just painting everything white. And I actually put about 3 or 4 layers on it just to make it look good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this jet black acrylic paint with the same brush, because like I say, that's the finest tipped one I've got, and I'm going to, instead of trying to figure out a way of easily cutting holes into the side of this real thin wood for windows, I'm just going to paint the windows on. I apologize, I know that's not normally the way I would do things, but I was not about to try and cut real tiny holes into this and have it all break up and have to start all over, so I just figured this would be the easiest way. Now, I'm not the best artist in the world, as you're about to see, and some of these windows turn out rather crappy, or I'm sorry, sloppy. No, crappy is a better word. But anyway, I have written an email to Ara letting her know that if she wants to, she's more than welcome to repaint those windows or paint over them, just leave it the side of it white if she wants, but I want to do at least attempt to make some windows in here. So we'll see what she does with it. Not very square, but if I had a better paintbrush and better skills and not so shaky and didn't have 3 cups of coffee in me, they probably would have turned out a lot better. And yes, there are a couple of windows over the door in the front, and I don't know what the back looks like, so I'm just assuming that it's very similar, so I just made the back look like the front. The only thing I didn't do in the back compared to the front was I didn't put a door there, but I am about to make a door for the front, as you'll be able to see in a picture that I show here in a little bit. And this is again the same piece of 1/32 inch thick wood that I've got, basswood, and I'm just approximating what the size of the door looks like, and I'm just going to take my chisel and cut off a small piece of it there. And I have got to sharpen my chisel because I had a hard time for some reason getting that to go through there. Of course, I didn't want it to splinter and break all over the place, so I was being a little bit too delicate, I suppose. But eventually it popped off. And something else that I don't show here that I did with that door is I actually end up sanding it, holding it flat on a piece of sandpaper and sanding it really thin. I mean, it's probably about half as thick as it actually is right now. So right there, you'll probably might be able to see it. But anyway, I'm going to take this red metallic paint, and if you look real closely right there, the door is red, so that's why I'm painting the door red in this. And I'm going to make it a metallic red so it kind of shines a little bit. I figured a storm door type of thing would be somewhat metallic. And I'm just going to take good old tacky glue and put a spot of it on the back and stick it onto the front of the church. Tried to get it as centered as possible. Yeah, should just about do it right there. Anyway, I'm going to let that dry. Cure. Set. Whatever. Okay, now it's time to put the roof on. I'm going to use this 5-minute epoxy because the best way to attach metal to wood is with epoxy, so that's why I've chosen to do this. You can use super glue if you want. I don't care. I don't like using super glue if I don't have to. With the metal and the wood, just because it can get messy and I just don't want to get stuck with it. So I'm trying to shy away from using super glue as much as possible. I'm a patient person. I can wait for glue to cure. So anyway, here I am. I'm just applying it to all the edges where the metal is going to be touching, and then I'm just going to attach it to there and fit it into position, and good to go. Now I'm going to be making the cupola. Actually, what I'm making here is the copper spire that you can see up there at the top. That's what I'm going to attempt. And I'm going to be using this 3/4 inch circle. Now, let me explain. I'm going to go to a website called blocklayer.com. This is what it looks like when you first pull it up. You go to this printable templates and then go down here to cone pattern templates and click on that. Advertisement. That's okay though. And what I'm looking at is this section down here. It shows how to make a cone. Now, right now it shows this 1 inch hole in the top, and then the whole 4 inches on the bottom, and it tells you all the dimensions and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm going to make a complete closed cone, so I'm going to start with this top width here and change it to 0. And the base width, I want it to be the 3/16 of an inch. That's the top of the block, or the top of the cupola. So I'm going to go down here to 3/16 and click on it, and I want it to be 3/8 of an inch tall. It's double the size of the cupola, and that spire looked like it was about twice the height of it. So that's why I went with the 3/6 or the 3. I'm going to go with 3/8 here for the height. And then I'm going to turn off this full scale for right now and click on the dimensions button, and you hit the calculate, which when you change these it automatically does that. But here it brings you down and it shows you that this part here needs to be 3/8, that needs to be 3/8, and this radius here needs to be 3/8 of an inch, and that outer arc is approximately 19/32 of an inch long. From this point here following all the way around to there is how long that is. Now if I put this into full scale, that's how big it shows up, and it shows more information down here and whatnot, but that was really hard to read. I did print that out, but you really can't read anything in it as far as, information about it. So that's why I clicked off on this full scale so that I could see this information. And so that's how I came up with the radius of 3/8 means that the diameter is 3/4 of an inch. 3/8 times 2 is 3/4. So that's how I came up with using the 3/4 inch diameter circle to cut out that piece of copper. So anyway, really good information on this website. Lots of little calculators that you can do and whatnot on here, as you can see, and plus all the ones that you saw at the beginning. So anyway, highly recommend this website. Like I say, lots of good information. And if I want, I can actually take this and I can rotate it so I can see it from different angles and stuff like that. So anyway, okay, anyway, back to the build. Well, I hope that made sense. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my circle template here. I'm going to line up the lines that you see there on the sides and the top there with the edges of the copper piece that I've cut. I've actually already cut that to a 90-degree angle, which it actually was supposed to be 87 degrees, but it's close enough. Anyway, so all I'm doing is I've got a really hard-tipped mechanical pencil here, drafting pencil, that I'm scoring a line across, and I will take my scissors and cut that out, and that will become the cone at the top of the cupola. And that's a piece of ebony there that I'm using to kind of straighten it out a little bit. And I'm taking that same pencil lead. It's a nice, good, strong lead. And actually, that didn't work, but I got it started with that. And now I'm just using a pair of round nose pliers, small round nose pliers that I've got to help form that cone, which didn't do too good of a job. There probably would have been an easier way to do this. I just don't have all the really good tools to do it with, that small. But anyway, it worked. It ended up looking okay, decent anyway. Now, this is the little piece of wood that I'm going to use to make the cupola part that cone will sit on top of. And I'm using a triangle file here just to kind of get a groove started in the bottom of it, which it's basically 3/16 of an inch cubed. It's a little bit longer on one side, and I really wish that I had picked a different side to make this groove in, but that's okay. I'm doing it on end grain, which is fine. But anyway, I'm just kind of going over that just to get a groove. Like I said, a groove started. Now I'm going to switch over to a square file to go the rest of the way. That way I can get a 90-degree angle to match the roof line that's on the church that this will be sitting on top of. And I just check it every once in a while, and it kind of got a little rounded, so I just do a little bit more, and eventually it gets to the point where it looks good. And the cone sits right on top really nice, and that's what it's going to look like right there. Well, close. You'll see. Anyway, I'm going to paint that cupola white, and I'm going to take my dental pick here and stick it down in the base of it just to hold it, so I don't have to try and hold it with my fingers, being as small as it is. And yeah, there's some fuzzies there, which I end up just kind of sanding off and then repainting this later on. So anyway, there it is, all dried up and getting ready to, again, metal and wood together. I'm going to be using 5-minute epoxy to attach that, and as well as using the same to attach the cone, the spire, onto the top of the cupola. So I'm just kind of debating on where I want to place it. And again, using the post-it note for the epoxy mixing table and a toothpick. A little bit there, a little something there, and a little something there, and I kind of fill up the cone a little bit with some of the epoxy, and then I put a little bit more on top of there just to help to hold it all together. And there you go. There's my little church. Nothing too fancy. Anyway, that's what I'm doing for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, have a better day, as I always say.